Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to do a festive video and we're going to be showing you how to put together a wonderful grazing table display. And this is going to be a really nice video where I'm going to give you tips and tricks on how to really pull this look off. This is a really nice way to bring your family together around a station of food that is just going to delight and just elevate your next holiday party to the next level. So you're really going to want to check this video out. It's gonna be a lot of fun today, guys, so let's get started. First of all, I wanted to kind of go over what a grazing table even is. And so you guys may have seen these on Pinterest floating around. And these are these large displays of food where everything's kind of stacked on each other. And it's almost like a giant charcuterie board. It's just this giant display of food and it's beautiful and it's just really something that invites you in to eat. But the nice thing about it from a functional standpoint is if it's done in the right way, it can really save you a lot of time from standing in the kitchen and cooking while your guests are there. The idea is that you can prepare it and then have the food ready for your guests so that you can enjoy the food with them. And so it's an idea that is something that can be, snacked on throughout the entire day as well. Again, there's a specific tips and tricks that I can teach you on how to do that to make that a safe way to eat. But the idea is to make it something that everyone can enjoy and just go up to when they're hungry, get themselves a snack and kind of can continue on throughout the day. And it doesn't necessarily only have to be a sit-down meal. You can do this in addition to your sit-down meal if you have a very large family and or have a very large gathering and you want to have somewhat of a pre-dinner, feasting, but you can also do this in lieu of a large and fancy dinner. So you can do it both ways. So for example, last year I had quite some guests to my home over the Christmas season and I did a grazing table and that was a fun way to kind of have everybody snack and be able to kind of go through and do presents and things like that. And we didn't necessarily have that formal sit down that we have on Christmas Day. So it was something that we did on Christmas Eve. And it was a fun way to kind of celebrate in a different way on the two different days. Also for holiday parties where you might have a lot of people, you certainly are not going to be cooking a sit-down meal for parties of 20, plus people, or unless you are just really motivated. But this is a great way to feed a large volume of people. So the first thing that you want to consider when creating this type of table is where you're going to put it. And so choosing a location for a grazing table is important because you want it to be in a central location, but you also want to make sure that you're choosing a location that's maybe a little bit child friendly, if that's something you need to consider. Something that's also close to the kitchen so that you can take things in and out of the fridge to add to it potentially if you have it. So that central location is going to be really beneficial. And so typically I find one of the best places for this is in the kitchen, especially if you have a large open concept space, maybe a large island that's next to, where everyone's going to be communing. This is going to be a great place to put in grazing table. Of course, you can put one anywhere if you just have a fold out table and you want to put it anywhere. But when we go through and I give you more tips and tricks, I think you'll kind of see the utility of having it near the kitchen. I have a central island in my kitchen, and so I set it up like that last year for Christmas. In my new house, we also have a big central island, so this is a great place to focus a large volume of food. So to start in preparing something like this, one of the things that you're actually going to consider is that a lot of the food is going to go on the surface itself. And so you want to make sure that you're placing something down first to protect that surface. So clean the surface and then add something on top. I used a large sheets of parchment paper. I think that's your best option. Now, the next thing that you want to consider for your grazing table is adding in your plates and elevations. And so when I do a grazing table, I like to not necessarily only have everything on the parchment paper. I like to add in elevations and stands and plates because I think that that's going to add a lot more visual interest. The other thing is there's an absolute functional utility to that as well. The things that I, may not want to have out all day long, I will put it on a plate for two reasons. The number one, I'll actually add an ice pack underneath of that plate so that items can stay cool. So for example, if I do a cool plate platter, that way the cheeses or the salamis or meats and such can stay cool. And the second reason is, for example, if I feel like that food is maybe out too long or could potentially be out too long, I can lift that plate up off of the display and put it in the refrigerator for a time being. And so it's good when you think ahead to the items that you may not want to have out on your display all day, that you can actually put them on a plate to make them removable from the display. That leads me to my next tip, is making sure to consider the temperature needs of the food products that you're placing out. Any of the items that you're putting out that have a little bit of a temperature sensitivity, it's important to add ice packs underneath of those displays to make sure that you're keeping your guests safe by keeping that food appropriately chilled or cooled. Now, the next step in bringing in a good grazing table setup, I really like to think about not only a variation of snacks and textures, but all kinds of things that you can add onto this table that are going to be a nice treat for people, really decadent things. So when that could be sweets or nice rolls or nice pieces of bread or nuts and candies and sweet fruits and nice vegetable platters and things like that. All of these things are going to make a really beautiful display. And so not only do you want to consider bringing in a large variety of food, especially for, a variety of guests, you want to consider how you're going to display that food. And so that's my next tip. When I start arranging these, I actually use a little bit of a fun method in displaying the food that I'm placing. I really try to make the food look elegant. And so, for example, I did like a little vegetable and salami setup where I made it look like a Christmas tree, and I used little pieces of greenery to do that. And this greenery, I actually used some faux greenery, plastic, so that I could hand wash it afterwards. But you can certainly use fresh herbs and things like that to make these displays also look in a very similar way. I made this hot bread appetizer and I made it look in the shape of a Christmas tree. And so this is another idea for you, considering adding elements of the holiday that you're celebrating to that display to really make it a lot of fun for your guests. I've set up these mozzarella and tomatoes in the shape of a candy cane, for example. When I put the salami out, I actually set them in, layer them around a shot glass or a small glass or whatever you have. And then when you lift that up, it looks like a rosette. And so being a little bit intentional about the way that you're setting this food up makes it look really beautiful and elegant and a lot more fun for your guests to eat. Another tip that I would give you is it actually looks a lot more fun if you can kind of fill in all the spaces. And the way that you do that is going to be with a lot more dry foods like breads, crackers, cookies, things like that, nuts, stuff that's not going to be a problem to stay out all day long. And so once you fill up all your plates, kind of fill in all those spaces, and that's what's going to really give this an over-the-top look. You add in seasonal fruits just draping and dripping out of different bowls, and man, oh days, it really makes a beautiful display. And then the next morning for a Christmas morning brunch, I did want to include this picture because it's also, you know, an idea for you. I just used a whole bunch of different recipes and hot pots actually to create a breakfast brunch display setup in a similar way. Now, I didn't fill it in like I did for my display the evening before for Christmas Eve, but I did really set up a lot of items on the table, so I thought it was worthwhile to include that you can actually take this central location and set up your food in a way that's also pleasing without making a full-blown grazing display. So don't be discouraged if you're like, oh, that seems like a lot, or I want to include more hot foods and hot plates. You can do that as well in this way and still include a large variety of items and still get a very fun and similar effect. This was a Christmas brunch meal that we made for the next morning. So guys, I hope that you got some useful tips from that or got some inspiration from how we like to celebrate our holiday. I really love to share with you some of my personal videos as well because I absolutely love all things Christmas. I would love to hear if you would consider creating a grazing table in your home. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.